So that finishes side 3. You can see already how it's starting to dry. The adhesive is wicking up to the surface where the teflon is on both sides. And you can see the excess is dripping down. It's a pretty messy process, but you have to let it all wick out. That's how the adhesive levels out. So we'll watch this. This will really start setting up probably about another hour or so. So in the next 2 hours we'll watch it, make sure nothing's shifting or moving. So in the meantime, what we did yesterday is we got the sled all glued together. So basically these two wood pieces, the dowels, I had to put some popsicle sticks or tongue depressors because the dowels weren't touching the wood, so they need to touch. So I'll let this dry a little more, but ultimately the two bulkheads will go on either side and seal this up. So this is the eBay. We took the inner tube. You can see I coated it with adhesive. So you can see it's shiny. So that's a thicker tube. Actual end caps butt up against this lip here. And then this is the tube coupler. So this section will go like in this section here. If I can do this one hand. Like that. Like that. So you got your original ring. This is the exterior ring. This is the ring that we did the full fiberglass step on. This is the payload section. And then this side of the eBay will go to the top of the booster section. So the only piece that's exposed is this ring here. And this will have the switch for the altimeters and the vent hole for the altimeters, all accessible in a key lock to basically arm the charges. So the idea is when you're at the pad, you get it all set up. The rocket's standing straight up, it's ready. The last thing you do is you activate the altimeters with the key lock. That sets up the charge. You get some beeping to confirm the altimeter's on. So there'd be electronics penetrating here. So what I also did yesterday, I started working on the nose cone. So we cut a section out of the nose cone so we could access, and we put this hardware on. So this will be for the shock cord for the main chute. So the main chute will actually be in this section here. The charge up on this end of the eBay will ignite at around 500 feet. Basically detach the nose cone. Nose cone will be tied off between here and the U-bolts on the bulkhead of the eBay. So now that this fits, we'll take this off, weigh it. Everything's weighed before we construct it, so we can put that in the actual simulator. Simulator needs dimensions and weights of every component. Obviously, as we put adhesive and things like that, the weight changes, so we're constantly updating the simulation software. So we'll take this off, weigh it, put it back in place, put some glue on it. These are the Teflon locking nuts, but I'll still put some glue on this because we don't anticipate ever taking this off. And then the next thing I'm going to do is inserting some brass plates, 3 plates. And the idea is we'll drill through this tube, through the brass plates, and we'll press 2 56 nylon screws in 3 locations. So those are the shear pins. So the idea is when you reach apogee, the altimeter blows the bottom section, this section comes off, and the drogue chute comes out. So this is just a friction fit like we do today with single deployment. But the eBay will have recessed screws that will be screwed to the payload tube, and the screws are there just so we can take the eBay off when we want to work on the eBay, but otherwise it's screwed to this tube. But up here, that deployment at apogee technically could falsely detach the nose cone if it was only under a pressure fit. So we want that this section will be falling, free falling, only held by a shock cord as it descends from roughly 9,500 feet. So a lot of the blowing of the wind and the bouncing around, we don't want this coming off. So the shear pins, the nylon screws, small nylon screws, are pressed in, press fit through a hole here, through a hole in the brass plate and into the nose cone. And so the idea is when the injection charge at 500 feet on this end blows, the brass plates act as a knife edge and they shear the screws off, allowing this to come out. So today we'll be inserting the brass plates, we'll be cutting the 3 holes and getting the press fit for the nylon. As far as the eBay, the next step is we're going to coat the couplers with what a lot of people call super glue, but it's a CA type glue. Dries fast, but it'll make this coupler really hard. If you look, I can bend it. I don't want to be able to do that. I want this to be like hard plastic. So we'll coat this whole thing and it'll dry pretty fast and it'll make this rock solid. So then we'll sand it, and then we'll have 2 sides that are pretty robust and we'll do a nice fit. So we'll do that, and we'll then, once that's dry, we'll tap and put some screw inserts at 3 locations, and that'll be the connection point to hold the eBay in to the payload section. Okay, so I'll give you some updates later today, but that's what we're working on. Till later. Bye. Okay, it's Sunday afternoon, pretty much finishing up for the weekend. Still letting the tip-to-tip dry. You can see the one we did earlier. It's getting pretty hard, so it's drying up. So these 2 sides, actually, as of tomorrow, will be dried for 2 days. The 3rd side, which I did today, I'll let that dry by Tuesday. I'll take all that off. So what we have here is we have the booster. So you can see where that piece will slide into the back here, and the fins will actually go up this point here. This weekend we glued the coupler in to the booster extender, so this actually will go inside this tube here. Like so. So when that coupler is in, this is the bulkhead that actually goes inside right above that coupler, and this is where the drogue chute shock cord ties off this one long booster section. So that is the contact point for the booster and the rest of the rocket. Then moving up from that, we finished making the eBay. So we have our inner tube here with the recess. This is our 2 end caps that have the U-bolts. So this U-bolt will actually be the other side of the drogue chute. And this is our sled. The sled will actually bolt on to both the end caps. And the end caps will go on either side of this, making this cylinder airtight. Not airtight, but at least protecting the electronics. You can see here I put recessed screw studs, and there's 3 of those, and the idea is this goes in the payload section. If I can get that in with one hand. Anyway, it goes in. You can see how this hole lines up with this hole. So the stainless screws actually tie off the bulkhead into the payload section. Then up here on the payload section, we have the nose cone. We put the mount here for the main chute. This will hold the main chute at the nose cone, and the other end's going to be held on the upper end of the E-bay. So what I did here is I recessed 3 sections in the nose cone, and I put brass sheets in there, strips, and the idea is once we put that in, we're going to drill a hole through the payload through the brass sheets. That's where we'll put the shear pins through, so the brass will actually act as a knife edge. When the injection charge hits, the brass will cut off the shear pins. So that's the nose cone. So I'm waiting for this to dry. I got one more recess point for a brass insert. So we got the brass insert. We'll cut these holes. Once the E-bay is dry, we'll finish putting all this together. Tuesday we'll remove the fiberglass, so the teflon, and insert the engine tube into the booster and glue it in place. Once the engine tube's glued in place, then we can actually make this up, glue this in, and put the extender. I want to keep the extender off until I get the engine tube in so I can reach from this side and put glue on the top. Put that in. Technically, before we wrap it in the 3-ounce and finish it, we could fly it this weekend. So this coming weekend I plan to run a 38mm engine that would actually only run it the first flight about 1,700 feet, and we'll just deploy the main chute at apogee, and then we'll go up a little more powerful, actually close to the limit of my level of certification. We'll go to about 2,500 feet with an I motor, 38mm, to test it a little higher. That'll be about 2,500 feet. That's about as high as I want to go with a single main chute. And all that works, we'll bring it back, finish up the rocket with the 3-ounce, and completely do all the filler, basically get it ready for painting, but just stop short of painting. Then we'll shoot it again some weeks from now at its maximum altitude on a 38mm, still within my level 1 certification. It's about 3,500 feet. At that point we would test the dual deployment out, make sure all that's working. The rocket passes all those tests. We will paint it and be ready for our level 2. So until Tuesday, when we put the motor mount into the booster, or actually we got to remove the film and trim up the fiberglass. See you then. Okay, today's Tuesday, September 23rd, right? 22nd, okay. So I did side 1 and 2 on Saturday, and for the video I did side 3 on Sunday, so they've all had at least 2 days worth of drying time. And contrary to the videographer's commentary, can you take a close-up of this? It does cut you like glass, for the Smarty Pants comment on the last video. See that? So, Daddy is right. So anyway, so we're going to pull the Teflon off. Hopefully you can hear me with the mask on. And I don't know, Tara, if you want to come over here and get a look on this side. So we start pulling this off. You see how, hear that? That's what cuts you, Tara. So it's coming off. See how it pulls that whole, lifts that whole big hunk of epoxy up. Go in here. Get this one. On this side, peel. Four long sleeves for that very reason. It's going to be interesting in here. Surprisingly, it comes up. And there we go. A little bit of air pockets, but again, in this case, we don't care. So I'll sand some of this down, smooth it out. But you can see that's a solid bond there. You can see the weave right there. So we flip around, side 3. See, it has kind of a texture a little bit to the Teflon mesh. Very sharp edges though. Folds up. On this side. It's kind of tough in here because all that epoxy was going in the wells there. Pretty good. That one didn't have as much air pockets, but probably because I did this. Lesson learned. This was the side I did by itself. These other two I was trying to do 2 at one time, so air pockets got in. But first time, but doing the inner tube, so there's some air in there. Inner tube, so it doesn't really matter. And we'll be doing another coating of the 3, so we'll sand this up and smooth it out. This side came out a little better. This is probably the worst. You can see the air pockets. Smooth to the touch, but you can just see how there's some lifting there. But considering the problems I had trying to do 2 of these at one time, and the fact they delaminated one time just for the sheer weight of the Teflon, came out pretty good. The lessons learned when we do the exterior one, because that one the quality will be important. Little extra pieces I added at the bottom there. Right there. See how sharp that is? Yes, Tara, it feels like glass. Would you like to touch it with your finger?
Can I?
Stick your finger down there.
You suck.
You can see how that would cut you though, right?
It's not that sharp.
Not that sharp. Oh, you're so brave. Alright, so I'm going to do a cleanup real quick. This is just a grinding wheel. It's not even really a cutting wheel.
Gosh, you screamed in my ear.
Scare you? Okay, so you see how well this comes out. You can look down in here. You can actually see the tip has adhesive all the way to it. So the mesh is all the way. Dad and I were talking. He was questioning if you had to. So the very tip, yes, is not covered in mesh, but it's got epoxy on it. So what I'll do is I get closer, I'll just use a sanding wheel and get it closer than this. This is just roughing it out. So I'll finish this up and then we'll come back later and show you the finished product.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so this is after all the trimming. So cleaned it up with some water, but you can see the did a pretty good job. Trims up pretty good. I left a little bit on the edge. I'll clean that up after we put it into the rocket. But you can see we got other than a few places where the Teflon lifted up, but that's still material there. So got a good coverage. There's no bubbles or anything on the fiberglass. So pretty good. You can hear it's very rigid. So that's what we're going for. So let this set up overnight. I've sprayed it with water. So once it's dry, tomorrow we'll tack it in place and then we'll start gluing it.